Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to a little bit of a different video. So as you can tell by the title, it is finally time to do my top 10 stories from the first 10 seasons of Classic Who. So if you have just clicked on this video and you've never seen me before, my name is Marie-Clare. Thank you so much for joining. Right, so for those of you that aren't regulars, I'm watching Classic Who. I've just started season 11 and I thought it'd be really cool to look back on the last 10 seasons and pick out my top 10. Now, I do rate the stories. So once I've finished watching a story, I rate it out of 10 and I keep track of it all in Mitiardis. Now, I'm not doing this in like a... I'm just picking the top 10. I can't choose between the ones that I've given 10 out of 10. This is just my top 10. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 5 stories in Classic Who that I have given a 10 out of 10. 2 that I've given 9.5 out of 10. And then I've given quite a few 9 out of 10s, and I just had to choose my top 3 to put in this. So I did have to have a little bit of a sit down and a think about which ones stand out to me. I do also want to say that I have only ever watched these stories once. I haven't rewatched any. Obviously I've seen clips and I've seen people's reactions to it, but I've only seen the stories once. So this discussion that I'm about to have with you, there are going to be gaps in my memory because some of these I watched a year ago. So just bear with me, but I think it's really important that I just go off the gut feeling that I had for them. Looking back at my rating system, I agree with every single rating I've ever given. Again, when I rewatch Classic Who in the future, this could change, but for now, I completely agree with my scores. So this is going to be super interesting. So from the 10 seasons, I just want to quickly say, there are only 2 seasons that are not included in this top 10. Season 3 and season 7. Now, when I look at season 3, my highest mark is for the Daleks master plan, which I gave 8.5 out of 10. But all in all, season 3 is quite average for me. A lot of 7 out of 10s. For the Ark, the Celestial Toymaker, I would maybe bump up to an 8 now, but the War Machines I gave an 8. So season 3 is just an all-round generally average. If we look at season 7, Inferno got an 8.5 out of 10, so that was close. But then Doctor Who and the Silurians were a 6.5. So I think it's really interesting that I've got every other season in this. I've got 8 seasons in my top 10, which I think is really cool. So I am rating the stories. This isn't the seasons. Although that would be a good other video. If you do want me to see, if you do want to see me rate the seasons in my top 10, then let me know. Okay, so I'm going to start. Oh gosh, I've got an itchy eye. Right, so I'm going to start with a 9 out of 10. I'm going to work my way up to the 10 out of 10s. So my first 9 out of 10 from season 1 was Keys of Marinus. Now, it's really funny because I have really fond memories of the Aztecs, and Aztecs isn't in here. The reason I'm putting the Keys of Marinus in here, and the reason I remember giving it such a high score, is because it gave me this, I think I remember it giving me this Sherlock Holmes vibe. I really love a story, and there's a few in here that have this puzzle solving element to it. And I just remember watching it and the companions being separated from each other, from the Doctor. And I just remember being completely taken by this story. There was a bit with, was it Barbara or Ian, when they got trapped in this little prison thing. I just absolutely loved this story. And this was season 1. This is the only thing from season 1 in here. And I guess this was probably the point in Classic Who when I started to think, okay, I get it. I just remember being, I can't wait to rewatch some of these. I just remember it being really, really, really great. And I think this was also the story that I remember thinking, oh, the first Doctor's, I'm starting to understand him, because I think up until that point he'd been quite standoffish, quite blunt, but I just started to understand him a bit more. So Keys of Marinus, 9 out of 10. That's the first one in my top 10. Number 2, also a 9 out of 10 from season 8, The Mind of Evil. This is the story that I fell in love with Roger Delgado. Him and the Doctor together are just absolute. I mean, they are just probably one of the best duos from Doctor Who, I think, all in all, because their relationship, you can see that they really got on off screen. I loved this whole concept of what on earth is this machine that's making them see these worst nightmares. We had, didn't we have the Brigadier have to do a funny accent? I feel like Jo really came into her own. I remember it was one of those stories where you're constantly thinking, what the bloody hell is going on? And that was this for me. I absolutely loved The Mind of Evil, and Roger as the Master is just. I understand now why with New Who a lot of you say that no one will ever compare, because I get it, because he is so good. Like, he's the original. He's unbelievable. Number 3, from season 4, the Moonbase, which I also gave a 9 out of 10. This is interesting. I understand why I gave it a 9 out of 10. And at first I didn't think I'd given it that high, and I looked into it a bit more and I thought, okay, yeah, I kind of get why. I really, really, really love, I love the Cybermen. I really love the Cybermen. I loved the Cybermen design in this. And we had the whole thing with Jamie being, I mean, I thought he was going to become a Cyberman, and that kept me on edge. It was just an all-round really good story, and I felt that like there were lots of moments where I genuinely thought something was going to happen to the Doctor or one of the companions, and for me that just makes a really solid story. And I really liked the supporting cast in it. I thought they were really good. I think sometimes you can have a story and, you know, the Doctor and the companions are great, but then you've got these really actors. I have really fond memories of the Moonbase. Man, I miss the second Doctor. Right, number 4. From season 5, with a score of 9.5 out of 10, we have The Enemy of the World. What a bloody good idea. What was he called? Salamander? Okay, so the opening episode of this was filmed not far from me. So I feel like I automatically had a link to the place. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I know that place where it's being filmed. We had my favourite classic TARDIS team. I love so many of them, but I do really love Jamie, Victoria, and the Doctor. Seeing the second Doctor play a completely different character, I just think was genius. I just think the whole idea was genius, and it was a long story, right? It was a long one. Why do I remember it being a long one? I probably should have done research off this, but I'm just trying to go off the top of my head. I just thought it was a really clever concept, and I loved it. And 9.5 out of 10. That's impressive. That's impressive. And it's the second Doctor, and y'all know how I feel about the second Doctor. He has a very, very, very special place in my heart. And there was the helicopter. Was that the first time we saw the helicopter? I think it might have been, you know. Yeah. I'm having flashbacks to it now. Yeah, really, really great story. Okay, numero 5. Another 9.5 out of 10. From season 9, Day of the Daleks. Now, I know that I saw again, I'm going to get the terminology wrong. I know I saw the updated version, which had the pew, pew, pew things put in it, which the original didn't. I loved this story. I remember the opener. We saw the Ogrons for the first time, and I nearly fell off my bed. What the fuck is that? Because I was so taken aback by this creature is still to this day probably the weirdest thing I've ever seen, and I just wasn't expecting it. And then the Daleks appeared, and I just was not expecting the Daleks at all.
The thing is completely dead now.
But it was working.
It started to work.
I really loved the story because I remember it from start to finish. It all made sense to me. I feel like sometimes with a story, it can be great, but there's parts where you think, I don't think that would have happened, or it jumps really quickly from like a middle bit to an end, and there's no like in between, and you're thinking, yeah, but how have you got from A to B? This story just made complete sense to me. I loved it. Joe was great. We had the unit gang. We had big explosions. We had the Daleks. We had the Ogrons. Loved it. Really, really loved it. Right. Ooh. We're now on the 10 out of 10s. So all 5 of these got 10 out of 10. We're going to start with a story from season 6, The Mind Robber. Now, this was like my perfect story. It was just, oh my God, it was all like timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly, and that's what I wanted to see. It was just one of these stories where you thought nothing else could shock you, and then something else would happen, and it was like, right. We had the TARDIS console in space. We had Jamie and Zoe turn up in this like white place, and then these robots appeared. We had Jamie in that unbelievable outfit with the kilt. We had the episode where I think Jamie's character was Jamie Fraser Hines was off sick or something, so they had the really good idea where the doctor had to put together Jamie's face and he made it wrong. So then there was another Jamie who I know sadly has recently passed away. Then we ended up in this like fantasy castle, and it was just brilliant. Like fantasy and Doctor Who all in one. It was loved it. Really, really, really. I feel like if I were to write a story, it would be along those lines. Just like really random, really weird, but great. Right, number 7. We're going back to season 5, Tomb of the Cybermen. 2 Cybermen stories in here. I would say I'd put that in my top 3 top 10s. My top 3 10 out of 10s. The scene between the second Doctor and Victoria, I think a lot of us agree that it was really similar to the first Doctor's little chat with Vicky. Just great. We had the Cybermat, the Cybermen coming out of their, I don't know what they were called, eggs or something. They were like coming through. Then there was like snow. Then they got frozen over. Again, there were moments in this where I thought a companion could die. The ending was great because was it the little, is it called a Cybermat or Cybermat mouse? I'm not sure. We saw that escape. I loved this story. I love the Cybermen, but there were also moments in this with the other cast where you're shouting at the screen thinking, what are you doing? Stop. or you're like, no, it's coming. I remember just being really engrossed in this story, and I know that a lot of you love this story. Rightly so. Right, number 8. Let's go forward a bit. We're going to season 8. Terror of the Autons. Introduction of the Master, the introduction of Joe, and the introduction of Mike Yates, I want to say. This was one of those stories. So I remember the Master appearing, and I remember a few of you saying, why are you not believing it's the Master? I just feel like I just couldn't believe that he was actually here. Introduction to Joe, and actually I think I fell in love with Joe pretty quickly. I definitely fancied Mike Yates straight away. We had is this the one we had the weird Time Lord in the air with like an umbrella or something, and he was having a chat. We had the daffodils, and we had those bloody people holding the daffodils in like their big costume. Oh my god, horrific.
That is literally my worst nightmare. Oh la la.
I know we had them when New Who first came back, but I think they are so much creepier in Classic Who. I mean, when they're like in that shop window and they break, oh my gosh, absolutely terrifying. Terrifying. This again is an element that I love. It had that horror. Is horror the right word? Maybe like thriller, creepy vibe, which I love. I love it. I love a good scare. Really great. And I think, I find it quite crazy that this was Joe's first story. What an incredible story to have as your first story. Just an all-round bloody good story. And I remember it ending because we had the whole thing with the mask and the Master, and that was when I remember thinking, okay, the Master's going to keep coming back because he's got this bloody mask that he uses. Number 9, let's head to season 10. I think we all know what this is. It's the 3 Doctors. Now, a few of you have said that you like the concept, but the story, there's parts that don't fully do it for you. And I think with regards to this story, I don't overly look too deeply into it. It had the 3 Doctors in it. I will never get over the shock of seeing the second Doctor appear, ever. I think it's maybe one of my favourite reactions. I just was not expecting it. We had those pods appear. For a second I was like, is it Zygons? Like, what are these things? Seeing Benton in the TARDIS, seeing the Brigadier in the TARDIS, seeing Joe meet the second Doctor with the recorder, seeing the second Doctor in colour, seeing the second and third Doctor together, seeing the first Doctor. Having kind of everyone travel in the TARDIS was just incredible. And seeing Omega when he took off his like helmet and he had no head, I just loved the whole thing. When they were going back to, I think they were going back to Earth, and like the Brigadier saluted at the Doctors. It was just I can't not give that a 10 out of 10, just because it will always have a really special place in my heart. So we're going to end with number 10. We're going to go to season 2. You guys know I love this story. I feel like this is maybe my most controversial 10 out of 10, and it's the Space Museum. This was the first ever 10 out of 10 I gave. I know a lot of you love the first episode of this, and it's in my top 3 favourite openers of all time. That moment when they looked around and they were all stood in their like little glass cases. I mean, I remember this was a story where Vicky really came into her own for me. She had this like fire in her belly, and she was like, well, come on guys, let's fight them. We can fight them for you. I just really loved this story. Again, I don't think I look too deeply into storylines and uh, anything like that. I just go off a general enjoyment. The same way I don't judge some of the special effects back in Classic Who. Actually, if anything, I love it. I mean, look at Terror of the Autons. I just love it. I think it adds to it. I just really loved the Space Museum. I thought William Hartnell was on fire. Vicky, Barbara, and Ian. I just really loved this story. I can't really say much more than that. I'm just going to keep repeating myself. So they're my top 10 so far, according to scores. The other stories that I'd given 9 out of 10 that I had to kind of pick my top ones out of that were The Faceless Ones, The Web of Fear, The Demons, The Sea Devils, Carnival of Monsters, and Frontier in Space. So from my 9 out of 10s, on top of that, that's where I chose Keys of Marinus, The Mind of Evil, and the Moonbase. All of my 9 out of 10s are strong, and it was tough picking between them, but I just had to go with my gut. But yeah, some of these 9 out of 10s, I mean, we all know how I feel about Carnival of Monsters and Frontier in Space, just unbelievable. Sea Devils, really, really, really great. The Demons, yes, loved that. Again, that's got like that horror thriller element. And what was the other one? The Web of Fear. Bloody love that story. Really love that story. Was that when we had the Brigadier for the first time? Maybe. I'm not sure. But I loved Victoria in that. So yeah, those were my top 10. I don't expect you to sit here now and tell me your top 10s. If you want to, by all means, bearing in mind this is top 10 from the first 10 seasons of Classic Who. If you are able to, oh my gosh, let me know. I'm really interested. Please respect each other's opinions. We're going to differ, but if you're a fan of Doctor Who, then you should appreciate everyone's top 10s because there's someone that's loving Doctor Who. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know if you do want me to do a top 10 seasons and putting them in order of favourite to least favourite if I can do it. I guess it's now time to start season 11. So season 11 will start tomorrow, I think, if this is correct. Where am I in the week? This should be, I think we're on is this Tuesday? I feel like we might be on Tuesday or Wednesday. So tomorrow you will get my first episode of season 11. I'm really excited for you to see it. I think my best reactions, I think anyone's best reactions come from a good episode, right? If it's a boring episode, I'm not going to react. But this is one of those episodes where there was just like surprise after surprise after surprise, and yeah, I think it's one of my best, if I can say that it's one of my best. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you're all okay, and I will be back tomorrow for season 11, episode 1.